All right, welcome everyone to the TBD podcast. Today we have the VP of Athletics from the University of South Florida, Michael Kelly. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So could you explain your role at USF? You've been there for 5.5 years. So what exactly does the VP of Athletics do?
Sure. Well, in this case, current president, Rhea Law, and before her there was Judy Genshaft, and I also worked for Steve Corral for the three presidents I've worked for over that 5.5 years. And just like any major organization, the president has a handful of vice presidents, and in my area, there's a vice president of health, there's a vice president of students, the provost. But for me, everything to deal with intercollegiate athletics is within my realm of jurisdiction. We've got 500 student athletes in 21 different sports. So I'm really just in charge with their care and with the business of making their experience elite, winning championships and graduating them, and being a great. We look at USF. We look at athletics to be a great front porch to the university and an ability to, engage the community, engage the campus community, provide a vehicle for student life and student pride, and then again, ultimately to graduate student athletes and win championships.
Yeah, man, it's such a big part of even going to college as a student, regardless of if you are a student athlete. I remember we were talking before we went live. I was at FGCU. They didn't have a football team, and that's all everyone talked about. Like, I wish we had a football team. I wish we had a football team. So I think the fact that USF already has a team, but now you're going to have your own home turf on campus. What's the rhetoric like around campus with this new news?
People are super excited about the fact that we're building an on-campus stadium that'll be our home starting in the fall of 2027. For me, the unique background, even when I was a graduate student back at St. Thomas University, which is in Miami Gardens, I remember writing a paper in 93 or 94 about, similar to what you're talking about at FGCU, that USF, I was writing, should start a football program. And that was just starting to get into the motions of things. Leroy Selman was doing a lot of fundraising. Mr. Frank Morsani was involved with that. Betty Castor was the president back then and kind of made things happen. So a lot of great folks that had the vision to make it happen. And early in my career, from 2000 to 2002, I was on staff with Leroy Selman, who was the AD at the time, and we were just starting to get into the Division I at that point in time. So 25 years later, you see where we are and competing very well. Just had our 11th bowl appearance this past year and won the Boca Bowl and everything else. So long-winded way of saying that football was a great next evolution, but it's only been around for us for 26 years. And so it was good to have it. We were fortunate to play in places like the old Sombrero, and then certainly now the last 24 years at Raymond James. But kind of like any 26-year-old kid, right? It's like sooner or later you can't live in mom's basement anymore. Yeah. You got to get out, be on your own, have your own digs, and that's what we're going to do. We're building a great place that'll be branded in the right colors for us, and be the right thing for us, be by USF for USF. And we've taken a lot of feedback, obviously, from this current student body, from alums, from ticket holders, from the people at large, and we just think this is going to be a transformational project for the university, because it's going to not only help our football program, not only help our brand new lacrosse program, but it's going to just be a great engagement tool for improving and just expanding the opportunities for current student life on campus. And then it brings people back, because even we have homecoming. We've got 50,000. We have over 380,000 alums. So if anyone comes back for homecoming, it's still a great day, awesome day at Raymond James. Party, see all your friends, but you're not coming back to where you went to school, not coming back to where you graduated. So now all this will happen again, and that's when schools even take off even more, when you get that much more engagement, I guess is the key word.
Yeah, 100%. I ended up transferring out and going to Florida State, graduated 2015, went back, I think maybe like 2021, something like that, for a football game. And yeah, you're right. Being on campus, back with friends, it produces this heavy sense of nostalgia, and it really connects you back to your university. You graduate and you get a job, you tend to forget that life a little bit, and when you go back and you're at a football game and you're on campus and you're walking by your old hall, then there's really something special. So when USF completes this stadium, your alumni are really going to be reconnected to the university.
That's what we felt so far. People have kind of called for it for a long time. It just wasn't the right time. Honestly, we were still too young. There were so many investments being made on the university level that really put the priorities first on the academic side, the research side. That's what's made us what just this past spring the university achieved was called AAU status, which is only 73 universities in the United States have kind of reached that kind of elite level, and USF's one of them. They're one of only 2 here in the state, along with the University of Florida, which is an incredible growth for that. And so if you look at it at the big picture, hey, that was the right focus, that was the right investment. That's not going to stop. Research, medicine, the academic side is still so important, but to now be able to invest more in the athletic side, be able to kind of take advantage of the great Tampa Bay region we all love to call home, it's kind of like, man, we can really just be this not only a great university of the present, but man, almost a model university of the future when you kind of pull all this stuff together.
100%. And as much as athletics are important for personal development for students, and there's a cool factor to it. It's really a big draw on students choosing a university. For some, for a lot. I remember when I graduated high school, I wanted that big football experience. When I ended up getting to Florida State, some of the brightest minds were the biggest football fans and the biggest sports fans. So to have that draw too, like not only to be still focused on academics, but to have a draw like this, first of all, sports complex, which I definitely want to get into. I think it's fascinating that you guys have all your athletics really in one spot on campus. But to have such a beacon for students around the country to look at USF as, hey, let me check that out. Let me put my application in there. Our economy needs it. I mean, we need bright minds to graduate and enter our workforce. This stadium is a huge part of that, really.
Yeah, it's just part of the big equation. But as everyone from the board of trustees, our leaders, Chairman Will Weatherford, our Vice Chairman Mike Griffin, our President Rhea Law, they keep talking about how this is a transformational project, and not just because they have an interest in athletics. They know what the tool will be, and as President Law says all the time, it's like we don't have to. It's not either or a great academic and research institution and or athletics. You've named some. You went to one: Florida State, Florida, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan. They're all elite academic institutions, but they realize what athletics can do to everything you just talked about: engagement, student life, student enhancement, attractiveness to applications, raising applications when people do well. And we've always we're one of America's fastest rising universities anyways, because we're in Tampa, because we've had such great academic success, but now even with the very, very recent success of winning the bowl game again last year, being a first place team in our conference with basketball right now,
it's exciting.
People love it, and that's when you see in a pro market like ours. Everyone in Tampa, I think, even if they went to another college, I think they like USF to do well. Even if you're a Gator or no, it's like, as long as we're not playing you're good with it because
100%.
We're your hometown college, right?
Yeah, in a weird way, it becomes your home college team. If they're ever on TV, I'm like, oh, USF. Let me watch it.
As long as they're not playing the Knowles, I'm sure you're rooting for it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk specifically about the stadium. I'm super excited to talk about, first of all, this entire complex. You kind of going back slightly, you worked on the Super Bowl committee at Raymond James in 2001, correct? So you were was that your first experience in Tampa during that time?
Yeah, it was neat. When I was early in my career, so from 1998 was the first time I ever moved to the Tampa Bay area, and that was really still connected to USF because they were the host institution for the Final Four that we played over at what's now it was then Tropicana Field too. And it's the only time the men's basketball Final Four has ever been held here in Florida, let alone Tampa Bay. So I came to the area for that. I was then hired by some of the local leadership then that was on that committee then to run the Super Bowl host committee efforts in 2001. So people like Leonard Levy and was certainly an icon here in Tampa Bay and helping bring the Bucks here, bringing Super Bowls here. So that was a real great mentor to me here in Tampa. And then ultimately, after that was concluded, and I spent 2 years under Leroy Selman when he became athletic director here at USF. I was his first hire, and we were working together on being able to transition our brand new football program into Division I at the highest level. And then obviously that continued on for years. I then moved around to a lot of different places. I conducted the Super Bowl in Jacksonville. I conducted the Super Bowl down in Miami. Went to work to the ACC office. I was the football administrator for the ACC, which obviously includes Miami and Florida State, amongst many others. And then I had the great fortune of being the first chief operating officer for the college football playoff when the different conferences decided to start a new format that we're all now more familiar with what's now known as the CFP. So I did that.
Yeah,
for
we were
6
the
years.
last year, right? 2013 or 14 was that last before
Yeah,
they switched.
when we, from a BCS standpoint, it switched then, but we did get a chance to host the CFP National Championship game here in Tampa back in 2017. So we brought it back. We were one of the early ones to kind of get that event off the ground, which is really, really cool. But that was a great job. That was a great historic moment for college football. But I was drawn to Tampa. I was appreciative to be called back by USF to continue the legacy, do some of these cool things that we're talking about today. And hey, man, Tampa gave me a great chance. Like I said, they took a chance on a 26-year-old kid to run the Final Four, Super Bowl, work with at USF at the time, and then even in my career at the ACC, at CFP, to still be able to bring events back to this market and continue those relationships I've been able to maintain here was fun. And now it's home. Family loves it, and now we're just excited to kind of build a new chapter here at USF.
In this whole area 20 years ago, when you first were working at USF, what was this area? I mean, just a big dirt field, or what was kind of going on? Because looking at the rendering, there's a lot happening now.
Yeah, well, at USF's campus, you're right. When I was here back then, we didn't have what's currently called the Leroy Selman Athletic Center. We were all occupied in what's now the physical education academic department. Basically, our football team was working out of trailers. Coach Levitt and the gang, we called it the Ponderosa. Mr. Steinbrenner, when he was with us and was with the Yankees, he'd give us their office trailers when they were done with spring training, and we'd operate our football program out of that. So fast forward now to seeing a great Leroy Selman Athletic Center that we built in 2004, a new baseball and softball stadium, a soccer stadium. Just last year, we just opened our indoor performance facility, so we have actually an indoor facility similar to the ones the Buccaneers have. And so the next big evolution is to say, hey, how do we expand our operations so that we can kind of put football into a new operations building, and then ultimately, how do we build this campus on stadium so that as much as we appreciate and love playing at Raymond James, it's getting a chance to kind of have your own place, like I talked about, and have something by USF for USF right there on campus is going to be transformational. And this view that you and I are looking at, I mean, think about it, that's the blimp shot on a Saturday night. You know, the old Brent Musburger, you're looking live. It's like you're looking live at USF Stadium. You know, so it's pretty cool, and just knowing that this is just going to be a really cool development on the east side of our campus. And then when you think about it, with all the things that are going on in Tampa in general, look at what's happened with Water Street, look what's happened with the Riverwalk, look what's happened in Seminole Heights, here in Ybor. And then we just think we can be another great catalyst for cool things that are going to keep happening up in North Tampa area, if you will, and
100%.
the whole Fowler Avenue corridor. And it doesn't stop there. I mean, we're developing. The university's looking into renovating a lot of the dormitories and expanding the dormitory village. It'll kind of come hand in hand with this. And then long-term plans that are still undetermined. But even our old Claw Golf Course, which is just to the north of Fletcher, but within a couple hundred yards of this stadium that we're talking about today, that will undoubtedly have a nice impact on daily campus life, and certainly as a added feature to again, just involvement and engagement around the stadium.
Those dorm rooms are going to be the most sought after on campus, man.
It'd be awesome.
Right across from the new stadium. Hell yeah.
They'll love it.
So and it's interesting too how USF is a relatively new school. I think 1959.
56 was the first year it was established.
56 was the first.
So you're right.
year.
In the big scheme of things,
it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And then Tyler, can you look up how many students are enrolled at USF? I want to say it's 30, 40 plus thousand.
Currently, right now, it's just under 50,000. Yeah.
Just under 50,000. That is crazy.
Now, the biggest campus is here on Tampa. We also have a great campus right on the waterfront in St. Petersburg, and then a smaller campus on the waterfront in Sarasota. So we really are Tampa Bay's university. But
Totally.
and then the medical school, which is in downtown Tampa, right there in the midst of Water Street. So a lot of really cool vibes. And our medical school is top notch. As I mentioned, we just made AAU status as an institution. Athletics is obviously thriving right now. So it's just a lot of cool things, making it kind of its school right now to want to be a part of. And a lot of that comes with the coolness of Tampa, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, people are like, wow, I want to go to Tampa. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, the city's growing at an incredible pace. There's always a new restaurant, it seems like every week, or something new, or a new building going up. And so at the same time, to have our university, I call it our university, but our area's top university to be growing at the same pace is really cool.
It is, and then even continuing on to thinking about our campus in downtown St. Pete with all the development going on there, what's going to happen around the Tropicana Field area. That's a great campus that's there that has some special programs, whether it's marine sciences, other cool things that are happening. All told, Garrett, the recent study said $6 billion annually of economic impact is basically created by the USF engine. So when you think about everything that happens here, USF is a major player in everything that happens here in Tampa Bay, which is a lot of fun. And that's where I think I genuinely want more fans to just care about our sports, but I want more people to just recognize and realize the impact of USF as a whole.
Well, I think it's extremely important. And that $6 billion figure, I mean, that can go a lot higher too. I remember when I was at Florida State, when we won the championship in 2013, literally the next semester, it was like the school redid the logos and there's new locker rooms and there's new facilities. We built a new student union. Hundreds of millions of dollars immediately invested after that win. So I would imagine a stadium plus some high level wins. Yeah, absolutely. That's going to provide an incredible economic impact.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and you're obviously just scratching the surface on the athletic side, which is near and dear to my heart, but also proud to just play a role in the university as a whole. And again, back to the medical school. Just amazing what they're doing in downtown, having a great collaboration with their teaching hospital and TGH. So again, doctors of the current, present, and future are all going to want to be here at USF Medical College.
Yeah, can you pull up a picture of the USF Medical Center? Just type in USF Water Street, because that building, that was the first building they built in Water Street. And when it was first going up, I thought, gosh, what a architecturally beautiful building. I mean, the glass, the way it's shaped, it's very unique. And then to see it today with students in their lab coats, look at this building.
Yeah, it's really well
USF
done.
Health, bam, plastered right there on the side of it. I love it.
It's beautiful. It's modern. It's progressive. And again, that proximity to have that, to not only live in a very cool place when obviously doctors and residents don't have a lot of spare time, but to be able to walk to places to eat, across the street to the Amalie Arena, to be able to be in a short walking distance from TGH where they got to work all the time. So again, all this research, all this professionalism just on the health side is huge, but obviously so many things happening on campus on both the St. Pete, Sarasota. Sarasota's building their first dormitory on their campus. The St. Pete campus is probably the most beautiful real estate in the Bay Area, there on the Bay. Our sailing program operates out of the St. Pete campus, cool. Which is pretty cool. And then
what's this building here, the shot, Tyler, with the green where downtown is? It's a 1 or 2 story building.
Yeah, Camels. That also has a lot of research done as well. That was built even before the medical center came about. So it's got a big research and medical component to that as well. But it has a lot of simulation on providing medical services and a lot of different conditions and all that sort of thing. So you're right. That was the first feature of a downtown presence. There's also the Riverfront Park that exists right on the Riverwalk. There's a USF
bull,
Park. Yeah, there's a big bull.
Yeah, pull that up too. That's a cool USF Riverwalk. That should pull it up.
And so that's a neat another feature of branding right in downtown Tampa.
I mean, imagine a city like Boston without its schools, right? It's
right.
Like it's
That's a really good point. I never really thought about that.
People think about college as being Auburn. Maybe is a good example, or Florida State. We have the capital, but Auburn, where my dad went, without that school, that is just a little podunk Alabama town. You know what I mean?
Town, yeah.
People sometimes forget how important higher education is for a city.
But you're right about Harvard. I hadn't thought about Boston. We got Harvard, we got Northeastern,
MIT,
we got Boston U, Boston
right.
College. So all these great schools, but that's all about research and things that impact that made on the entire country. So now you come to a warmer, frankly, more enjoyable place to
no
live.
Snow. Come on down.
And that's kind of what I think USF stands for, is all about. It's like, hey, you get a chance to. We're still relatively young. You point out 1956, might be older to some, but in the big world of higher education, Harvard's been around for 200 years.
Yeah.
Florida's been around for over 100. It's just like, okay, this is really cool. We can be making an impact not only in this community but in the world. And that's another thing too. We have so many international students at USF too. So people all around the world are coming into Tampa.
Well, a university only has students for 4 to maybe 7 years with a grad school component. I would imagine at your level at the school, including the board, the people in charge of any university. You have to churn students. People are only there for a certain amount of time. If you're not procuring new students that are excited about coming here in the future, then you don't really have a future, right? So
Right.
is a big piece of that executive level, I guess I'll call it, of the university. Hey, we need people to look at Tampa, to look at USF that maybe are looking in Boston, and maybe they are looking at on the West Coast, and they go, "Oh my God, palm trees, sunshine, beautiful school, great athletics. I'm sold."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to be. That's kind of a bold, visionary leadership that you have from our board of trustees, from our president. Things that are putting. We're already had a lot of success. We're very proud of it, but we really see the opportunity to just make something very, very special and kind of be, kind of get to make the mold, if you will, to kind of leave a legacy as opposed to maybe necessarily being the next thing. So finding a way to do this is all very, very special. And you're right, to be an AAU institution, to have this medical success, to have this impact on a great, vibrant destination like the Tampa Bay region, it's really, really exciting. And I think our under President Law and our current board led by Chair Weatherford, you've just got a bold vision of folks that are all working together. Yes, I'm standing side by side in a meeting with Dr. Lockwood, who's in charge of all the medical stuff, and with our provost and everything else that's got all these visions for what they have to do. But almost like any team or any business at all, right? We all need to do our jobs to the best of our ability, star on our own roles, understand what everyone's doing to kind of bring it all together. But again, rather than jealousy, some places have a jealousy. Oh, athletics doesn't get this or does get this,
Or it's not
medicine or
important,
this and that.
right.
But now everyone's kind of working together under President Law's leadership and Will Weatherford's leadership to say, wow, we all have a chance to do this. And yes, if athletics thrives, that can bring some more attention to us. This stadium brings some more attention to us. It brings a galvanizing tool to bring people back to campus. It brings more students, to your point, a bigger application pool, which allows you to be more selective, very much what Florida State has done over the years.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I would make a case that you could say, since the last national championship in Florida State that you mentioned when you were there, a lot more application. You got a lot of attention. It's not the only reason. I'm not here to say athletics is the be-all, end-all, but it is an important ingredient that kind of brings attention to the university and allows the rest of it to thrive, or at least allows the rest of the university another avenue to tell the story.
Again, right, as a former college kid, it's a huge catalyst. I was never involved at athletics at the collegiate level, but everyone loves it. You want to be a part of a team. When you can wear those colors and that logo, there's something special about it, especially when you're hitting the academic marks. Now, hey, I'm proud, man. We're winning games and we're smart, right? That's the ultimate.
Well, ultimately, we do make I would say our provost and others make a point that, hey, with this AAU status, we're ultimately all trying to add value to the degree of people that have already attained it, and to attract more students and even better students to people that want to come here.
Y'all stick
and make
around
an impact,
too. Like I've met a lot of people in business over the last few years, and where'd you go to school? Oh, USF. It's like, oh, you stuck around. That's another goal too,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
you're right.
if you guys can have students that stay in the area, like I said earlier, contribute to the economy, build businesses, that's massive. That's a huge game changer for the city.
Huge, no doubt. You're right.
Has this stadium kind of always been on the radar?
It's been talked about probably from day one.
Yeah, I would imagine.
And
so.
again, as I mentioned, it's really just a matter, man, you got to put so much into just developing a program and building an athletic program, building a university.
What are we talking about in terms of a development project? Dollars. I mean, this is hundreds of millions of dollars, correct?
Yeah, just even in the last couple of years, I mean, shoot, it's always been talked about at some level. I'd say just before I got here, there was a feasibility that was done in earnest to really try to get a feel for how much revenue could be put toward it to be able to build it. And then when I got here, we did another feasibility study, and it was really Will Weatherford and Mike Griffin and Rhea that kind of put the foot down a couple of years ago. Actually, when we were doing the groundbreaking for this indoor facility, that's when they said it. They kind of said, let's build an on-campus stadium. Let's go to work on it. Let's see what it takes.
Let's finally do it.
And at that time, it kind of took that, like anything, it takes bold leadership like we got from them to say, let's go make it happen. And over these past 2 years or so, we've been able to kind of put the whole thing together and be able to say, hey, what can we afford to do? What's the budget going to be like? How can we kind of put it all together? And so to your point, last summer is when we got the approval from the board of the financing plan, which ultimately is a current budget of $340 million of construction costs that all go into it. And again, there's very rigid restrictions on what you can use from the state of Florida, of what dollars you can use from the university. So that's why really those feasibility studies were so important, because $200 million of the 340 will outright be revenue, funded by a loan basically we took out that will basically pay back with the revenue sources we get at this stadium that we don't currently get at Raymond James. We don't get the fortune of the kind of the premium revenue or the sponsorship revenue or the concessions or parking when we get to play at Raymond James.
How does that work at Raymond James? Do you rent it for a day?
Yeah, we just rent it each time we play in it.
Literally, so you pay Raymond James to play there, and they set it up for you, however that goes. Yep. Interesting. Okay, cool.
Yep, exactly right.
Fascinating. And then scroll down, Tyler. I believe there's other renderings too. Bailey, she sent some really cool pictures. I think it's all the same as this.
Yeah, so this cool thing here, this is kind of this is considered part of the stadium project because it's adjacent to it, because you can see the stadium behind it. But this is what, based on a gift we were able to secure from TGH, it'll be the TGH Center for Athletic Excellence. And in essence, it'll serve as the operations building for our football program and our lacrosse program as well. And you can kind of see our indoor we just built. So it's so adjacent to it. It's so close.
Right,
so
because the field in the foreground in this building
these are our existing practice fields right now. That indoor now exists right now. So this is just going to build on top of that. And the building that's really where we're sitting on the vantage point where I am right now is the Leroy Selman Center. And that's where currently football and all of our sports work out of. And we're just kind of busting at the seams. So once football is able to move in there, that's going to allow us to expand the locker rooms and the meeting space for all of our other sports, which is only going to make them better too, right? So they're simultaneously, they're going to be able to recruit better. They're going to be able to service, and kind of our vision is to kind of just create a very championship-worthy program in all of our sports. We attain for universal excellence in everything that we do.
Is this the final design we're looking at here?
This is not. It won't be final, but this is a great conceptual drawing about certainly how it'll blend in. It'll definitely be this kind of two-story building going into the stadium tower. So
kind of modern glass, really cool. And I love how the green, that almost looks like a bull in the center with the two horns.
Exactly.
Yeah,
we got the bull we got the bulls on and that's the student section side, because that's where the students will be walking from their dorms from and all that kind of stuff. So.
Awesome. How exciting. And then you said something interesting before we went live about the funding, and you said something along the lines of the more money we can raise or procure, the cooler things we can do, right? So is that expansion? Like what cool things were you talking about?
Yeah, what we plan by this is obviously this is going to be a very excellent building. It's going to be modern, like you said. It's going to be built by USF for USF, but we've got a pretty locked in budget as it stands right now that has the scope of what we have. So we want to build it smartly to be cool now, but also have the foresight to say, hey, wow, what if we keep taking off in the future? Because this is going to be about a 35,000 seat stadium.
Wow.
We want to be able to build, hey, what if we want to add more seats later?
Like Florida State did.
Yeah, exactly.
They added that whole top row. There's a restaurant up there now.
Exactly.
It's really, really cool.
Now we'll be able to build in this tower. We'll have we've visited Florida State. We've seen that club they use there that they kind of use 365 days a year because the faculty can use it, the staff can. So we'll have all that. We want to make this not just an athletics building, that's a pride of the university as well. But so we've got a pretty good focus on what we can do with this first budget. And what I mean by what you were asking before is like, hey, we got to be smart enough to do some foundational stuff now so you can go back and add on to it, whether it's 1 year later, 5 years later, 10 years later, whenever you can kind of raise more money in terms of what you can do.
And are you hiring a consultant, or you kind of mentioned, do you literally travel to other stadiums and go, oh, this is a great idea. Ooh, let me pull that from that stadium.
Yeah.
Like, how are you piecing this together?
Yeah. Well, number one, we have a great sports architect on board in Populous. They're one of the most prominent sports architects in the world, and they've built a lot of these college stadiums and pro stadiums in the past 20 or 30 years. So we get their expertise, and then internally, certainly all of our everything from President Law and Vice President Jay Stroman, who's the head of our he's the CEO of our university foundation that obviously helps us raise a lot of the money, our board, and then even our football coach, Coach Golish, and his chief of staff and some of my staff. We've gone on trips to about 5 or 6 different facilities just to kind of say, hey, wow, Coach really likes this. I really like this. And again, you can't do it all. Some of it you take what you – and you learn too. You learn like, hey, don't do that. And then our colleagues in college sports are very forthcoming. Like, this is awesome. You got to have this.
Or even
be careful
design, I would imagine,
mostly,
right?
It's mostly in design.
Because your move, that's a lot of people to move in and out in one day.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I would imagine, hey, that's a pinch point. We realize, don't do it that way. Are there things that you've learned visiting these stadiums and talking with these other directors of different stadiums around the country, like, hey, that's a lesson we need to learn ahead of time?
Yeah, some of it's just in terms of where you place certain things on the stadium side, different ways to create revenue and be able to service our top fans the best way to make it comfortable and unique for way fans to bring games. And on the football side, really just trying to make it as efficient as an operation as possible. So Coach Golish and his team kind of figuring out and learning from other centers. Florida State, for instance, is building one right now too, so I'm sure him and Coach Norvell have conversed. So it's just great to bring the best practices from other places. As we mentioned, my previous job at the CFP and the ACC gave me a chance to really become quite familiar with all 15 ACC schools. I was able to travel a lot with CFP, so yes.
Boston College.
I've been many times to Boston College. I know what they have. I know everything from Alabama and Georgia down to the smallest of schools. And are we going to be able to afford what Georgia has? No, not at all. But are there certain aspects of what they've done and the the way things flow and things that they learn and how they treat and create a very efficient atmosphere for their student athletes? Of course. How do we learn? And and what I think is what I love about this as well that you've alluded to all throughout, as a relatively young school, we've been able to have the real estate here to master plan, if you will, in a way that I think, as I've said earlier, will be one of the finest athletic districts in all of college sports. And in fairness, this is not a critique in any way, shape, or form. I have huge admiration for Florida State, Florida, and others, but let's just say Florida. They've, in recent years, built some amazing facilities for soccer, baseball, softball. But it's like a mile or 2 miles away from the core. And they had no choice. That's where the real estate was. They're not going to knock down stuff.
Can you pull up the map, Tyler, we were talking about? The
but
real
us,
estate is an important conversation.
But for us, we've been able to do this. And in the big master plan of USF, we're kind of a big part of the east side of the campus. The academic side is very much the central part. And then we have a ton of medical and research side on the far western side. So it's a huge, huge deal when you really look at it.
This right here, what we're looking at, this large square footprint. Now, I believe USF also owns the golf course to the north, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is Bruce B. Downs. This is Fowler. That's Fletcher. So for everything from 50th to Bruce B. Downs, that whole big rectangle is USF. And you can see the golf course to the north is also a property that we can control that we know will be developed in time that will serve the student body and serve the campus life and a lot. And you can see all those are a lot of apartments that serve the university. So we've got about 9,000 students that live right on campus right now. We'll be able to add more dorm rooms. I think we have 20,000 that live within a mile radius of USF.
Amazing.
So again, all those kids being able to converge upon our stadium and all of our athletic, you can kind of see it from the satellite view where everything's all nice and concise.
Yeah, it is a massive footprint of real estate. I mean, that's the athletic complex alone. And
so where you see Sycamore Fields in the softball, that's where the football stadium's going. So there's
right there in the north. Mm-hmm. Very cool. And then there's the Morsani football complex that has already been built. That's the most recent addition to this area.
Those fields were there. We just built the indoor, the big roof you can see on that satellite image right now. And one thing I should say about where that stadium's going, it has some, not only you're pointing out just how it'll make a great district, it's got some historical unique significance to it as well, because when we were first starting our program, that was the fields where Coach Levitt and the very first players all had their practice for the first couple of years before we built those other practice fields. So we love it that the historical significance when we build that thing, it's like, man, everybody's first drops of blood, sweat, and tears was right here. And so for all those players and for all those fans to say, this is our forever home is really pretty cool.
With the leather helmets and all, right?
we were beyond that. We're not that old. But
yeah, that's right. 50, what'd you say, 6?
56 when the university was founded, and our football program started in 97.
97, wow. Yeah. Yeah, such a short period of time, less than 30 years, and here you are expanding and building this incredible new stadium. So zoom out, Tyler. I want to talk about the area. I think where USF is important because there's a lot of high growth in this kind of northern portion of the city. Zoom in a little bit further. I'm trying to capture this university mall development here. So that's they're calling it the Uptown District. And then on a separate tab, Tyler, if you could pull up, I guess, Uptown Tampa Development, we could see renderings. Basically, that is an entirely new, almost if you're familiar, like Midtown in Tampa, how it's a select area that has office, retail, restaurants, bars. It's like this mixed use, big, beautiful project right next door to USF. So students going to USF in the next 5 to 10 years are going to essentially be going to I mean, I hate to say a different school, it's not, but the growth and the amenities, including the stadium, are going to be completely different. And there's going to be so much more going on.
So much more, that much convenient in that district. And you're right, with all the great development going on in Tampa as a whole, as we already talked about, you got Ybor you're involved with, you got Midtown, you got downtown. And so now to see what's happening at the Uptown District, at least on the University Mall site, what's already happening on the campus itself that we control, what can happen just to the north of us on the old golf course property. So it's just so many things. There's things going on with research. There's things going on with the Moffitt. There's things going on with Yangling Brewery and the Brew House. Mosey just added, Zydeco as another restaurant, and so a lot of people are looking. We like to play this role as a catalyst to kind of help continue to. Just to make this even a better place to live.
I forgot about Mosey. I used to love going there as a kid. You really forget. I mean, I'll speak for myself. I really forget about how much is going on up there. I mean, there is so many. That's kind of north where Busch Gardens is and Adventure Island. I know it's a little south, but even so, that whole area of Tampa is so ready for a change and growth and all of this new stuff. Type in University Mall redevelopment. I'm trying to get a rendering because the scale of this project is pretty insane.
Yeah, and it's just the next road over on the other side of our western border. So you're right, everything that would happen on University Mall is big. And then even when you think more globally, Garrett, you think of the way Wesley Chapel and other things are growing. So to us, that's not inconvenient from a Wesley Chapel resident to go downtown to come to things. But now we become, between the Yangling Center and this new stadium, another great another entertainment venue for them, because we have obviously visions beyond just our USF athletic program for that stadium. We think we can work with the Tampa Bay Sports Commission to bring soccer friendlies, NCAA championships, concerts, other things, kind of be another entertainment haven up in this side of the city.
Is that the correct rendering? Click visit. Man, if that's what it's going to look like, that is incredible. When you piece together this whole uptown North Tampa area, it almost seems this stadium was necessary. Like, you guys are getting these plans together and really doing this and at the same time as all this growth. I mean, can you imagine this area in 5 to 10 years without the stadium? It's really a no-brainer in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we just feel it's exciting. I mean, for us on a small part on the athletic side, it just becomes, like I said, a partial catalyst to what's happening here. We have someone on President Law's staff named Eric Eisenberg, who's really charged by her to basically go out and continue to be our main conduit to everything you're talking about, everybody that's working on this uptown, and what will the USF's role be in that in terms of being a part of it. So a lot of cool things happening.
Yeah, scroll up, Tyler. So University Mall gets redeveloped, Florida Trend. That'll at least give the viewers an idea. I mean, residential, retail, office, cinema, open space, and hotel. I mean, and not even including, we touched on it a little bit, but really that is a huge medical district. You have
exactly Moffitt. You got our Morsani facility already on there as well. You got this is all in that area. So our whole western side of campus is nothing but research and medical care. Then you have another Moffitt Center just south of Fowler. Then you're right on entertainment-wise. You got what Yangling's doing.
Right.
You've got Busch Gardens. You've got everything you just mentioned.
Well, just for a student, I mean, going back to like Auburn, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot of opportunity outside of that university in Auburn, Alabama. When you look at USF and what's surrounding it, whether you are a student moving into hospitality or sales or medical, I mean, you have a plethora of options around you for internships and then future opportunities post-graduation too. It's kind of wild. I've never thought about that area of Tampa in this way as a student graduating. Man, why would you go anywhere else? I'm about to enroll in a graduate degree. I'm talking myself into it.
It does make it extremely attractive to become a student at USF. And you're right, even on the small part we touch with the stadium, between the Vinnick School of Sport and Entertainment Management, between the hospitality school, we've got visions to, those are like living laboratories, right? Our sports and entertainment executives could be a major part of actually running this facility, booking this facility, hospitality-wise, if we have a club inside our club region of the stadium that's kind of going on day in, day out. Just like Florida State does this with their hospitality management school with the hotels up in Tallahassee and stuff like that. So those are just living laboratories of really cool real world experiences. And that's only what happens on campus. Then you combine that with already in downtown, to Midtown. Oh, by the way, you can go to the beach in a short drive. So again, I agree with you. When I think about the universities of the future, it's already an awesome place to go now, but I'm just like, wow, what are my grandkids gonna think like when it's like, why would you not go to this really cool, AAU, cool athletics, on campus stadium, part of a renovated uptown, close to downtown. Go to the beach, good weather,
sunshine,
place
palm
to be.
trees, all of the above. And really, not to crap on UCF too much, right? But their university is built out in such a suburban area that they're very limited to what they can do in terms of having catalysts around the university, like we're talking about. That is so unique to USF in that way. UCF has, I think they have like 60,000 kids or something like that now.
They do.
It's kind of crazy. But again, right, they're in this area where they can only expand on their own footprint. I believe they have preserved land all around them. And they're really not anywhere close to the urban core of Orlando. Whereas USF is so like meshed within the city. It's such a different experience.
That's a good point. I mean, obviously, it's not a critique. We just have some differences, but you're right. And it's kind of funny you mentioned that because if you think back to 1956, many that I've talked to, it's like when USF was founded, that land that was provided, it's like, man, will anyone ever go up there?
Yeah, exactly.
Will it ever touch it? And now it's right in the heart of everything, and so that is a unique difference. And again, on the UCF side, while I think we can have a much bigger impact on Tampa than they do in Orlando and a lot of the cool things you've talked about, on the positive side for them, there are some things to learn. Them building that stadium 20 years ago really did inject a lot of campus life into that student body and created a great source of pride. So we're not naive to that. That made a big impact on them, and we think that'll do the same for us.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree. Back to the Super Bowl in 2001 in Tampa. You mentioned, were you 26 years old at the time?
I was 26 when I came here, so by that point I was probably 20, because I came here for the Final Four first and the Super Bowls after that. But so yeah, I was 29, I guess, at the time.
That's so young. And what exactly was your role on the committee?
I was the president for the committee. I was the main staff person. No, I reported to the board led by Leonard Levy and some others.
But you were in charge of, what does that mean, like logistics of kind of the Super Bowl and the sponsorships? And all
what
that?
happens, each city, and even to this day for a Super Bowl, there's what's called a host committee. That's the way the NFL structures it. And basically they require, in their bid process that there's a whole book of things that you've committed to as a city, and it's that group's responsibility to be the liaison to the NFL to set up everything from the party sites, the real estate, getting the stadium ready, to raising a lot of money, frankly, that you promised yourself, and coordinating with the city, traffic, security, all those sorts of things. So my career was basically based on getting a chance to work with so many great people in what I call mega events, and that's where I still think it's relevant to what we do now in an athletic department standpoint. But when you're basically putting together, so for about 8 years there, I would just move into a town, spend 2 or 3 years getting it ready for the Super Bowl, and then I'd be out of a job and I'd have to go somewhere else. That's why I did go from Tampa to Jacksonville down to Miami. And then we decided, hey, moving every 3 years was great in my 20s and early 30s, but it was time to get a big job, a real job after that.
Who played that year?
In that one in 2001, it was the Ravens against the Giants. It was the
Ravens Giants.
Yep.
Man, go to the top left, Tyler, with the Tampa picture, the kind of like artist.
The Charles Vizino video.
Look at that. How fun.
Charles.
That's awesome.
He still does those type of things for every Super Bowl now. He does some pretty cool artwork. But yeah, it was Trent Dilfer came back to play because he was the former quarterback of the Bucs at the time, and he was the Ravens quarterback that year, and they won big in that game, so it was cool.
And what's crazy is that was also Gasparilla weekend. So you had Gasparilla Saturday and then Super Bowl Sunday the next day.
So to your point, when we talk about all the development that's happened in Tampa and so much more entertainment options, that didn't exist even as recently as 2001. There was no Riverwalk. There was not much in downtown. So really the NFL at the time was like, hey, what are our fans going to do? Now it's not a problem when they come back. When Super Bowl's here in Tampa now, there's all kinds of stuff to do. But back then it was like, oh, man. So the the mayor, the crew, my board with Leonard Levy and others said, hey, let's, and then because this was January 30th, so
right.
They moved Gasparilla a couple weeks up to coincide with Super Bowl weekend.
Was that the pitch from the mayor? My grandfather was mayor at the time, which is kind of a full circle kind of fun thing. But so was that the pitch? Like, hey, look, was the NFL in a sense taking a risk on Tampa in that way? Like, hey, there's not much to do.
Well, that wasn't our first Super Bowl, but it was something because in '84 was our very first Super Bowl here, and there really wasn't anything to do then.
Right, nothing back then.
But what was cool then, Tampa's always found a way to kind of make the best of what they had. The '84 Super Bowl, believe it or not, actually created what was kind of the first things that we take kind of commonplace now of a hospitality village around the stadium, since they didn't have much around it.
Wow.
A lot of the people that were involved then created these massive tents around the stadium, created a really cool vibe for that first game in '84. Then, of course, there was the Gulf War game in '91, and then it moved on to, this was the third one that we had in 2001, because this was the first one that was played in, the first two were played in the old Sombrero. This one was the first one played at Raymond James. So basically Raymond James was built to help us get this one. But now you fast forward and there's so many other things that happened. But yeah, at the time, we thought it would be a good idea, and the NFL was willing to go along with it because there was the whole Pirate Fest around it and free concerts in the cities and all that. But I think that obviously the record books will show one way or the other, but I believe there was as many as they claimed 700,000 people in downtown, and even a normal Gasparilla now is like 300 or 400 even today. So it was like double Gasparilla, and it was not good on the logistics standpoint because there was traffic all the way back to St. Pete getting in.
I remember my dad complaining about that. What are they thinking? There's going to be gridlock across the city.
There was gridlock. He wasn't wrong.
Can you look up the Pledge of Allegiance? Was that not Pledge of Allegiance, the national anthem? I think that was Whitney Houston, right?
She was the second one. So she was the one that was at the old Sombrero during the Gulf War. So that wasn't the one we had Gasparilla attached to it, but
that's what I'm thinking.
Still a very good one. Yeah. So there's a lot of historic moments in Tampa Bay Super Bowl history. There's some cool things.
Totally, yeah. Incredible. Are we on the list again in the future?
Rob Higgins, who's the head of our Tampa Bay Sports Commission, is our leader in that now. We hope to, because unfortunately the last time we hosted, which we did really well with, and the Bucs won, which made it really special. Mm-hmm. That was the first time the home team had ever won a Super Bowl just a couple years ago. But the fact that we had it during COVID,
I know,
kind of lessened the impact, on the area. So we hope they'll reward us with another opportunity. So I know Rob and his crew are working hard, as are the Glazer family. So
there's a lot of
I'm sure we'll get one
now.
Eventually, but it's just a matter of when. And it probably, in all candor, will probably take some level of improvements to the stadium just to kind of keep up with all these modern stadiums that are getting built all over the place.
Look at the last one. I mean, that Las Vegas, the Allegiant Stadium. Pull that up, Tyler. That thing is insane. It looks like a freaking spaceship. It's beautiful. So yeah, we're
and the one before
that.
Los Angeles is pretty new. They just had one a year or two ago. So.
Kind of funny that the home team won in the Bucs Stadium, and then the very next year it happens again in LA.
And that it hadn't happened in the first 50+ years.
How weird. 2 years in a row. Yeah. Look at that thing. Yeah, look at the picture with it's kind of twilight-ish. Yeah, I mean that's crazy. That's any stadium built 15 or even 10 years ago or prior, it's not going to look like that. I would imagine USF, kind of like what we spoke about before, is very design focused. You want something really cool and modern, but it certainly has a capacity and room for growth. That's probably a tricky balance.
Yeah, and you saw some of those conceptual renderings. I think it looks cool. It meets needs for, we want to meet the needs of the modern student, right? How do they have a cool vibe, a cool area just for them? Don't just put them in a place.
Right.
Help design a place that's cool. There'll be some partial standing room parts, ways they can almost have their own kind of little club lounge in it of themselves to make it a cool place for our students to be. But yet, you're right. And we build what we can afford now and do it really well. And then if we're fortunate enough to be able to grow and add on to it later, you have to build it smartly so that you can have the physical capacity to do that at the right time.
100%. And then for you and your job, I mean, obviously a large portion of that is football. Football is probably the biggest sport. That's where you get the most turnout. How do you kind of balance that with not forgetting, the new, I think you mentioned lacrosse program is brand new. And then there was one other new sport you added.
We have beach volleyball that's also coming on board as well.
And a total of 21 sports. How do you balance that? I mean,
It's
That's
a lot.
interesting.
It's a lot. I mean, it's a labor of love, so that this takes a lot of energy, and you do it.
Beach volleyball wants love too. You know,
yeah,
they
no
need
doubt.
time, they need support.
And you do it with a great team, right? Because
Right.
I certainly give the attention I can to all of them and take my relationship with our coaches and our student athletes very seriously. But I've got great senior administrators that basically each sport has one person that provides daily focus to that, so they can really meet their needs. They in turn keep me up to date and kind of tell me where I can fit in and be help as opposed to getting in the way. But it just takes a great team, and we've got a great slate of coaches. Our head coaches from top to bottom, I think, are just the best we've ever had at USF, and they're just adjusting to the modern times of college athletics and caring for our students. And really, we think as you pour more into them, the winning will come. So we've really made in my 5.5 years here, we've been able to make not only facility improvements, but drastic improvements into our nutrition programs, our sports medicine, our mental performance, all these things, these small margins that ultimately lead to victory.
Absolutely. And then can we talk briefly too, while we wrap up here, about college athletes being able to get paid with their name, their likeness, and using that as a tool where they can not necessarily have to worry about finances. I think it's a great thing that student athletes can do that. How has that affected? Because you've been in the business before all that occurred. So what's changed?
Yeah, things have changed a lot, and I'd say in the last probably 10, 12 years, a lot, in particular about the amount of benefits that can be extended to student athletes, which frankly is a very, very good thing. It allows you've got some students that have really come from very little, can't afford to do things their families can't afford to come and support them.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that have been the right thing to do. It started with things called cost of attendance. So it was just like back in the day, let's say 20, 30 years ago, you used to hear kind of anecdotal things like, oh, I don't have money to take my girlfriend to the movies. I don't have money for laundry. I can't. I don't have enough to eat. They were getting fed, but it was just a matter of. But there was always these really complicated formulas about exactly what we had. So gradually it's changed. Hey, now we're allowed to give them cost of attendance on top of what they get in their scholarship. Now we're allowed to give them kind of unlimited food to what your budget allows to service your student athletes. Now you're allowed to, they have the opportunity to we call it Bulls Plus, but basically they can receive up to $6,000 a year in academic award incentives. Basically, if they hit certain benchmarks, they can get access to that. So that encourages them to do well in class.
That's nice. You provide that incentive too.
And then in the last 3 years, to your point, name, image, and likeness, it's now opened up the avenue. It's not a give me that they definitely get, but they have to do some sort of level of work or be able to warrant it through their market power to be able to gain. So now they're allowed to. When I was, before 3 years ago, a student athlete wasn't technically allowed. They couldn't have come on your show. They couldn't have been able to peddle their. Now they can sell their own jersey. They can be a sponsor. They can be a influencer. They can do things on their social media. So it's all ways that they can supplement their income that much more. And we look at it this way: we used to prepare our student athletes for life after sports for the future. Now the program we provide, whether it's financial literacy, whether it's branding, personal branding, all that stuff.
Cool.
Now it's like they get it for now, right? You can start your business as a student.
I love that. That was my next question.
My best example of that too. When I think back to when I was working at Wake Forest, Tim Duncan was our star player, NBA Hall of Famer. Wake Forest sold a ton of number 21 jerseys.
God, yeah.
Tim didn't make a dime off of that.
Yeah,
so now a star player, they make the revenue off of that, which is appropriate.
So the university itself is helping facilitate that. Like the university would almost consult a student, hey man, like you're doing really well, hit XYZ, we'll help you get, your jerseys done. And so the university actually helps students essentially monetize their name.
Exactly. And the rules of the NCAA have become modernized to go along with that monetization to be able to allow us to help. There's certain restrictions we can't go on. We can't, everything I said at the beginning, those are things we can directly fund: the food, the cost of attendance, the academic awards. Those are all things that are currently permissible in our organization through the NCAA's program. But the NIL side, we can provide a lot of structure, a lot of opportunity, can provide, all these things that we kind of set them up to run their own business. And, some players are running hog wild with it. Some don't want to deal with it. I mean, there's still some work. It's a matter of, hey, I don't want to come on a podcast. I don't want to go do autographs. Most do. Most will find a way to do things. But it's the Tim Duncan example was a good one I can give you. Then it was also weird. Like 3 years ago, I had some volleyball players that unknowingly had done a post for some sunglasses they had received, right? It's from a sunglass vendor, and he was kind of like, hey, take these, in kind, and pump this up on your Instagram. That was, at that time, that was a violation. So we kind of had, girls, you can't do that. Now it's totally legal, and it should be legal. Those are all things that before it was just kind of some archaic rules.
There was always talk about that for a long, long time. I'm glad that changed.
Yeah,
that's cool. So the university doesn't necessarily set it up for a student, but certainly supports them, certainly points them in the right direction.
Yeah, there's just, we can't actually compensate them for that, but we can kind of help them understand how to set up their business. We have two things basically. There's a thing called the Bull Market Exchange. So you can even go on to the Go USF Bulls website. You can go on to it, click it, and it basically, any of our student athletes that want to get involved in a business, when any of the restaurants here along Ybor could just call them, say, boom, I want this player to do some social media for me, do some advertising for me. Cool, you can do it direct. Or there's a thing called the Fowler Avenue Collective, which is something that if you just want to help, some benefits for student athletes, you can kind of become a subscriber or basically make a donation into that area. And then that collective is the one that sets up basically fan events where they can say, hey, man, we, just like you almost do in the pros, like there's going to be an event where all the, one basketball and one football player are going to be there. You can sign autographs, or they'll be at this watch party or whatever you want. But anyways, that's the way that the student athletes can benefit in that regard. Go show up at your birthday party, do softball lessons. Again, all these things that student athletes weren't able to do, whereas a general student could have. Like I could have been a great musician at USF, and I could have been paid to be in a concert, but the quarterback couldn't. Now it's all changed.
Well, and there was also the kind of weird unfairness of the school monetizing and taking advantage of that player clearly, and the student not being able to.
Yeah, and it's to me, it's how is it modernized, right? I mean, on the one hand, do student athletes still, the most is probably expected of our student athletes. I tell this to our guys directly all the time. It's like, you probably have it the hardest of most college students on your campus, because you're working really hard. You got a lot of hours to put into everything and keep up your student stuff. But you're giving a lot too, and they acknowledge that. Man, hey, you get fed well, sleeping well, getting a full ride. I mean, but it's also just not. So there's a good. I think we shouldn't devalue what's always been given them and what they get.
Right.
But it's also totally right for them to be able to still be able to go the extra yard and get compensated for things that, especially like I said, jersey sales, downtime, autographs.
It's good too.
Doing any advertising they wanted to do. I mean, and some they should. I mean, there's some people that are making 7 figures now because of huge. Caitlin Clark, friends, I think, is getting major dollars for.
Yeah, Deion Sanders' kids have Rolls Royces, and they're. But for an 18 to 21, 22-year-old kid to have that responsibility and have the school support you through that kind of large endeavor in business and selling jerseys, whatever it is, plus academics, can't forget that, and the actual athletics and the training and the nutrition, et cetera. It's an important lesson for an 18, 19-year-old kid to understand, too. So that's another reason.
Yeah, huge opportunity, but we feel it's part of our responsibility to prepare them for that, right? And we're grateful that to some extent of the way the NCAA's legislated, but also even here in the state of Florida, we've had some great laws that have kind of gone in place that have at least said, hey, we want the students to take advantage of that, but it's incumbent on us to make sure they have annual financial literacy courses, taxation advice, ways to grow your business. So it's still something you have to adjust to. That it is. Yeah. It's a foreign concept for 18-year-old to sometimes say, "What do you mean I have to pay taxes on this? What do you mean? Even for in-kind services?" It's kind of mind-blowing for them. Like, what do you mean? So,
wait, whoa, yeah, kind of interesting. Head scratcher if you're 18 for sure. Especially if you just come from an underprivileged area, you've worked extremely hard in your school and your athletics, and then you get an insane opportunity like a free ride to USF.
Right.
I mean, what a mind shift for you to adjust to real quick.
Absolutely, and that's why it's pretty cool to see, like, look, some that have just amazing market presence that they've earned, that you hear the outlandish numbers for. Hey, that's one thing, but that's really not the majority. I mean, I'd still say, hey, a lot of our student athletes do have some deal, but they might just be talking smaller deals that they're just doing in their spare time. But that's still the cornerstone, and why I personally still like and believe in the college athletics mission is that at the end of the day, it's still really, it's about playing the sport you love, making the most of your opportunity, and hopefully getting that degree. If you're, let's just say, a football player that wants to come to USF, because you often will probably redshirt somewhere along the way, you really, if you buckle down, you can do everything you want to in football. You can do everything you want to in NIL, and you should probably come away debt free with probably a master's degree if you do your right.
You do it the right way.
That's huge, man. If you can come out of here without debt, with a degree from an AAU institution like USF, and have played ball, and if you have it, and certainly the ability to get to pro if you have that talent, hey, man, that's the way to go.
And you're still young. You're probably 23, 25 if you get a master's. I mean,
Absolutely.
you are in a position to be set up in a lot of ways for life.
And that's the thing. Our student athletes are well positioned. Hey, we don't look at it as us using you or using them. We're a great team here. But, hey, you use basketball or use football or use soccer. Don't let that use you. That's what I remember our coach always told me that back when I was growing up. And it's just like, man, you can – I just say, well, you can come out of USF with a debt-free with a degree, even if you just stop there. That's a huge upgrade over even what most students can do. Because it's one thing for student athletes, but we got 50,000 students. There's a lot of students putting themselves through school, right, and that don't have the athletic gift. So I mean, everybody knows the challenges out there. Everyone's got to work really hard, no matter what their fate in life is right now.
Yeah, you give a lot, but you also you get back a lot too when you put in that discipline as a student athlete. You know, I knew there was a couple kids in my fraternity that were on the football team, and first of all, I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they enjoyed a social life, academics, and were on the team. That's a heavy schedule. Those guys were never sitting around.
Time demands are amazing. There's limits to exactly what they have to be required to do, but if you're going to succeed at the levels you want to, you got to put in your own time on top of what your coach is making you do, and that takes a lot of time.
Right.
And so that's why when you go back to the main theme of this whole interview, you kind of look at, man, that's why we're so excited about this USF Athletic District, about this building, about the stadium. We're making it uber efficient for a student athlete and a future student athlete to say, wow, I plot myself right there. Everything I need is right in a small little limiter. You know what I mean? It's like they don't have much time. They gotta roll.
I love that outlook because you're right. Not every kid's going to get a 7-figure deal. It would be ridiculous to assume that. You know, so to target or to tell the story of, hey, get a full ride, work hard, look at the city you live in, look at the opportunities around you. Sports and athletics are important. That's why you were chosen to come here, but don't forget the rest of it.
Right. Take advantage of everything you have at your disposal. And when you come to a cool city or cool area like Tampa Bay, we think with this modernization with NIL and other things, and you've used Auburn before, hey, there's a lot more businesses here in Tampa that maybe hook up with than there are in some of the more rural places. So I think,
100%.
I keep alluding to the future of this institution. The future of the athletic department is so bright because we're so fortunate to be here in the Tampa Bay area with so much opportunity. We love it.
So much more to come, too. Well, Mr. Michael Kelly, thank you for doing the show. I love your outlook on the city and the vision and how you're treating these student athletes with a very realistic approach. The lessons that you're teaching these kids are amazing. So thank you, sir, for that.
Thank you for having me. It's all about real, authentic relationships with our coaches, myself, our players, but really it expands that to this region. We are so proud to be part of Team Tampa Bay, and what a great place we're also fortunate to live in.
I'm looking forward to the new stadium. Remind me the date. When are we putting shovels in the ground?
We're going to put shovels into the ground sometime this fall.
Okay.
And then we're going to play our first game there in the fall of 2027.
Incredible. Looking forward to it. Okay. Thank you, sir, again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All righty. Bye, everybody. Thank you guys for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like it. Check us out on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel. Give us a comment. Give us some feedback. We want to know how we're doing. Thanks for watching. Bye, everybody.